hey, these are your Jesse Mack more than one word review things for the whole of 2016. These are my top 10 comics of last year, and I'm going to talk at length about them while hopefully not talking at length, because I tend to ramble and pause because I need a second to get my thoughts together. It's not great, but that's what you're here for. And if you're not here for that, I don't know why you're here. Hi! But thank you for being here. I always appreciate it. These were my favorite comics of last year, and as I always mention on these videos, my rating process is throughout the year, and it's always flawed. I set up walls that I can't break down with new books, and I look at them, and it's like, how is this still on here? How is this down this far? And so, it's not great, but I did really love these 10 books, so let's get on with it. My number 10 book this year was the first issue of the Black Monday Murders. It really... The world building in this was amazing. It blurred the lines between reality and fantasy in such a way that I still have no idea how much of what's in here is real and how much was just made up for the comic. I mean, I'm assuming the evil money god and all of that stuff was made up, but I don't know where the falsehood ends and reality begins, and it's just beautifully drawn. All of the I am a sucker for this kind of stuff. It doesn't mean anything to me. I can't make sense of it, but I just love the design of it. It's one of the things that I fell in love with Hickman when I first saw his work, and it still gets me. It's been a while since I've read a Hickman book where he just goes full Hickman, and this was very good. Should have brought a drink of water. My number 9 book from 2016 was the last issue of the Luther Strode trilogy, Legacy of Luther Strode number 6. This one, I felt like they wrapped up the story very nicely. It was never a terribly deep story, but it built nicely, like a kung fu movie. It built nicely to that climactic fight, and this was that climactic fight. And the reason that this made it so high is that it is... I didn't realize you could draw a fight scene like this. It was so kinetic. Like, just the action... It's art. Like, this is so artsy that it is near fartsy. It's just beautiful. I mean, it's gross. Like, that's all blood. Like, this stuff gets real gross, but in the most beautiful way. If they were to ever make a live-action version of Luther Strode, and it could match the energy of this comic, people would just... their stuff would just fall off. All of their genitals would just melt off of their body, because they wouldn't need them anymore. There would just be no more room for pleasure. It's pretty good, that's what I'm trying to say. Stray Bullets, Sunshine and Roses, number 12, was my 8th favorite comic of this year. And yeah, Sunshine and Roses, or Stray Bullets, is another one of those books that is just unstoppably good. It does the waves. You can't have action. Got to take the downtime so that you can build it back up to the parts that drive you mad. And this was one of those mad issues. Like, this happens. They crash through a windshield. It is, or at least the car crashes and windshield gets all over. It is just madness. Just a crazy mad chase / just comedy. Just wonderful piece of work. And the way that it fit into the larger heist story that was going is beautiful. Like, the issue before it was wonderful. The issue after it was wonderful. This was the one that really was as good as it can be. Except that there's more of this coming later in the list. All right, my number, what would it be? 7th book? Yeah. This year was Deadly Class number... oh, who knows? Number 21. This specifically, when I was looking through these comics trying to figure out what I wanted to say, get some idea in my head of what these comics were and what they meant to me and why they're on this list. This is one, this should be higher. This, I don't know how much higher or where it would go, but this comic was astounding. Deadly Class is just an insanely good book at having no ceiling to the stakes. Like, there is nothing that can't happen. And this is the issue where everything that could happen does. It is, they made no secret that some people were going to die in this story arc, and they didn't really say that pretty much everybody was going to die in the story arc, and that is the way that it turned out, which is heart-wrenching. You don't want to see friends turn on each other, but it's that kind of book, and there's no choice. Some people had to die, and it tore my heart out, and I kind of loved it. So, Deadly Class. Bitch Planet! Number 6. Bitch Planet is fantastic in and of itself. This was a single issue interlude dealing with a character who I believe had just died. Yes. And it was it was just very thick. Like, it is like almost a painful thing to try to read, because it is just the emotion is harsh, but in a very good, very clean kind of way. It's a big fan of strong women, and Bitch Planet has some of the strongest women in the comics market right now. And this one was just painful and then wonderful, but back to painful in a really great way. Oh, yeah, that's some serious business. And my number 5 book of last year was apparently Southern Bastards number 13, which I don't feel like it hit the heights in 2016 that it did in 2015, but Southern Bastards is still a hell of a book, and Euless Boss is still one of the best characters to come out of comics, probably in the last decade, at least. Just so many layers, just so much, and this was a boss issue. This was an issue that just got inside of what he was and how he was. You know, this is the homecoming game. This is the only thing that matters to him, and to see him go through the pain of it was wonderful, because I do truly hate that man, and yet I feel for him because I know where he's been. And that's how you know Southern Bastards is a really good book. And this was the best issue of it that came out this year, in my humble opinion. Number 4 book of 2016 was Clean Room number 4. This one's a bit of a cheat, because I had missed the beginning of Clean Room and ended up buying the first 4 issues all at once, because Gail Simone on a Vertigo comic, I want to give that a chance. And I was confident enough that I just bought all 4 all at once when the 4th issue came out. And it's a pretty good book. I have really enjoyed it. This was the one where things really got intense and gross, and it was also the last issue that I had in that run, which left it a perfect place to just read hard and then stop. And just so creepy, just endlessly creepy comic book. Ugh. Yeah. Had a really good feel, which goes a long way as far as affecting me when I'm reading comics. And if you affect me, I love you. My 3rd favorite comic of last year was the final issue of The Fade Out. Issue 12, I believe. Yep. The Fade Out, I felt it was kind of weirdly paced, and I didn't love it every single issue, but the story as a whole really stacked up to be something great. And I think it is just the utter lack of happiness at the end of this comic. Like, it's got so much despair that it hung with me like a weight from the very beginning of the year I think this came out like one of the first few weeks in January, and then it just hung there. And anytime that I brought another book in to compare to, it's like, is this better than the Fade Out number 12? No, it wasn't, because you get to the end and it's just like, which, it's hard to do that with pictures and words, and yet, ta-da! Shocker of shockers, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are masters of their craft. Stray Bullets number 14 was a hell of a thing. This boy, Joey, is not so right in the head, and he has a loaded gun, and he doesn't know any better, and the tension is through the roof. It is insane, this comic book. It is... And this came, much like issue 12, in a part of the overall storyline where things were really coming to a head. Sunshine and Roses is still going. I think issue 20 comes out next week. It's still going, and I thought for sure that it would have, like, there were not going to be more issues after 14, 15, maybe 16, because things were coming to a head in such a huge way that I couldn't imagine there being any more story afterwards. Turns out, life finds a way. But, oh my god, the tension in this one, and seeing the outside elements, how it fits into the larger story, is just... I'm getting chills thinking about it. Just him... he essentially plays Russian roulette through the whole thing, because he doesn't know that he could shoot somebody. It's real painful in that best kind of way. And on a different tone, and shockingly, from, I believe, week 1 of 2016, my favorite comic book was Secret Wars number 9, which is a miracle. The amount that I enjoy the non-superhero comics over the superhero comics is immense. As much as I love the capes and cowls, it is the bread and butter of what I'm reading, but it's so rare for a comic to rise above and be as good as what Image and Vertigo and, just all of these companies... It's mostly Image. At this point, Image just rules my life as far as great comics go. But Secret Wars was its own beast. It was the rare event comic that I actually enjoyed, became invested in. I felt like it didn't fall apart under its own weight, which is amazing, because this is a comic that Jonathan Hickman was making for years and years. He wrote the Fantastic Four for a few years, created a whole world there, sort of like left it to go off to somewhere else, or just did the Fantastic Four. Then he did FF, the Future Foundation comic that sort of took that a step further, and then he jumped into the Avengers and told those kinds of stories with a giant team, and then with a smaller team in New Avengers, and all of this was moving toward Secret Wars, toward Battle World, and eventually toward this one issue. This is the culmination of, has to be 6 or 7 years of work, if I had to guess, because I do not have those figures in front of me, and just stuck the landing. That's impossible. This recreated the Marvel Universe in mostly better ways. Ended up being a Fantastic Four story first and foremost, and it was one of the best Fantastic Four stories I've ever read. And this all it all ended so wonderfully. It was just... I didn't see the puzzle the whole time when we were putting it together. And when I got to the end and I could look at the finished work, it's a hell of a thing. Most of the other comics on this list are on there because they elicited emotion from me, and Secret Wars did that as well, but it is like just a perfectly crafted comic book, and a wonderful issue at the end of several years of amazing storytelling, and it is a treasure. I guess that's it. I guess I'm done. All right. Sorry that went on for probably about 15 minutes or so, based on that time, give or take. So, I'll see you again next January, when once again, I just talk way too much about comics that I liked, and for some reason you stick around and you listen to me, and I love you for it. Thank you so much. I have a good time. This is a good life, living the best life. See you next week.